This is the Vision with Execution show. My name is Adam Torkelson. I started this show December 31st, 2024, with the goal of doing at least 50 episodes. And this is about my 40th episode now. So my guest today is Michael Klassen, who also has his own excellent podcast, the 5 a.m. podcast. And I really like the premise of that, the name of that, for a couple of different reasons, which we'll get into in a second. But first of all, thank you for being here, Michael. And I'd love it if you would take 30 seconds to a minute and just talk about yourself, whatever that sounds.
Yes, well, thank you. It's great to be on your show. So I was born in a Christian farming family, and that right there, it's just the backstory of character and quality. And I loved watching TV, much to my parents' chagrin. They were always wanting me to go outside, do your chores, have some fun, run around the house. I loved it, television so much, I made that my career. And there's been a lot of bumps and bruises and curvy roads along the way, but in it all, I know that God was faithful to me to develop my character, and I'm grateful to be doing 5 a.m. podcast now, because this is really what I had wanted to do even 20 years ago. This would have been where I envisioned myself today.
Awesome. And I like how you brought up the word envision, which is
Yes.
related to the title of my show, Vision with Execution. So I want to dive in a little bit into your backstory for a second.
Sure.
You said a Christian farming community?
Family.
So
Yeah.
what did that look like, actually?
Oh man, we were kind of on the outside looking in our community, because it certainly didn't seem like there was a lot of people who loved Jesus or talked about Christian principles. I'd go over to my friends from school's farm. Maybe their dad was an alcoholic, or they were more impoverished than us, or there was some abuse going on at home. That was very commonplace for a lot of the people that I was growing up with. So I was thankful that we had the safe harbor of our small Pentecostal church in our community. And um, my parents would often say to us, we'd come home, my older brother and I would come home, and they'd say, well, you just have to have a thicker skin. Just got to find a way to deal with the negativity or the difficulty or the hunger pangs or whatever the case might be. We had to figure out a way to deal with it in a constructive manner and in a godly way, developing that godly character.
So you went to public school growing up?
Partly. My brother and I would joke that we liked the children at the public school better than the Christian school. And so we had a few years where we were at a Christian school for our elementary years, and then 1 year in junior high. The rest of it was all in public school, which I much preferred.
That's interesting. I have a very different view of the American public school system than most, because I was homeschooled in the 80s into the 90s.
Gotcha.
Back then, there was no real support system for that type of education. And I've got 7 siblings, and my mom was it as far as our teacher.
Wow.
And so my kids now, I've got an 18-year-old son who just graduated, and then my 15-year-old daughter who's in junior high still. I see the process that they're going through and the way that they're being taught and the ideas that they're being exposed to. In a lot of ways, I think it's very anti-American, anti-Christian, and even living in a state like Utah, we're very conservative Christian people as a culture. The school system does not allow that because of all the federal nonsense that has piled up over the years. And so I feel bad for my kids and all those kids going through public school. And there's even another element to that viewpoint, because we currently have living with us a high school student from Germany on foreign exchange. And so we're learning about what it's like in Europe to go through high school. It's very different than America. They're very more regimented. They take it way more seriously. This girl's 15 and she already knows what she wants to do for a career. She's taken steps to intern in a place where she wants to work. She had a work opportunity. That's built into their school experience.
Hmm. Wow.
And they test and they test and they respect their teachers or else. Like, and this is across Europe. This is not just Germany.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's my soapbox. That's my rant. I I feel so privileged to live in America. We have so much opportunity and abundance, but we squander it in so many ways. And
Yeah. Well, the states' rights for education, and then the battle, I suppose, probably for federal dollars. When do we want the government running the most important things in our lives? I know we don't want them selling us groceries or giving us government cheese or government ham, as they used to do for impoverished families. Um, but this is a lesson in what you're saying is what do we value and what do we hold most sacred? And it would make sense that the education of the future generations, it almost feels like it's far too important to leave it up. I was going to say leave it up to chance, but leave it up to the government, who we've come to see that there's more and more ideology that needs to, or that they want to bring into the home. And so the way to do that is through controlling the education. And that's, of course, speaking of Germany, the Nazis. I don't know if it was Adolf Hitler himself, but one of the cronies said that if you just gave the children to the government uh, for their formative years, you would have them for the rest of their lives.
yep,
And if we think about, my friend Kieran and I were just out fishing, and we brought along Ella, his young daughter, and you can see we all could think back to that childhood age of of if we could start educating the children intentionally with values and character at that very young age of 2 to 4, there's so much that they hold on to mentally and spiritually at that age, that it it really is an alarm that should be going off to parents of how critical that education in those young years are, to the child's future and to the future of the nation too.
yeah, 100% agree. And I know that there's a Bible verse that talks about if you raise a child in the way that they
Mm.
should go, they won't depart from it.
Yes.
And and no matter what your political or religious beliefs may be, or even if you don't have religious beliefs at all,
Hmm.
this principle is still the same. You teach your kids the morals and values that you want them to have
Hmm.
at an early as early as possible,
Yeah.
and then they will most likely carry that into their adulthood.
Yes.
It's just a true principle. It's scientific, and it doesn't apply to any one creed or religion or ideology. It's just
Hmm.
a fact, and that's why I like it, and I love talking about things of that nature, principle based, factual truths that apply across the board, no matter what
Hmm.
your religion is. And it's funny to me, I talk about religion a lot because I live in a community where we're all of the same faith. And I'm an assistant track coach. And so I'm mentoring a lot of these young kids. My daughter's on the track team, and so I that's why I'm an assistant there. But we constantly talk to these kids about principles of having a healthy mindset,
Hmm.
being prepared for an event that you're going to compete at, and doing your best, being the best version of yourself. And those principles translate over into every other area of your life, which is why I'm a big fan of high school sports specifically. And
Hmm.
once kids get into college or professional level, then they become another level. They become elite at whatever that thing is, and they have to hire specialized mindset coaches. I actually had one of them on my show a couple months ago. He's the mindset coach for the BYU athletic department.
Okay.
And they are very intentional about the words that they speak, the way that they think, visualization. It's just amazing the level of detail you can get into to prepare for one event.
Yeah.
And you can tell which kids have and which kids haven't.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And just to go back to that Bible verse you mentioned, I'm sure many people have heard the verse, spare the rod, spoil the child. That's a pretty common one, but it's a terrible translation. That word rod doesn't mean like a stick or a spanking mechanism. It actually means village, tribe, or royal scepter. And so, if you think in terms of what was actually being said back in the book of Proverbs, it's spare the village, the tribe, your family unit, the generations, then you spoil your child. And so, then understanding and taking that into team sports and understanding all the benefits from high school and university and college level sports of what that does in terms of a tribe and a village and developing character. It's once we realize how critical the generations are and the community is, then we actually have, it's not that we're running automatons off an assembly line. We're actually uh, perpetuating, let's say, the righteousness, the mindset, the success patterns uh, to the next generation.
I like that term, success pattern,
Yes.
because that makes it sound like you can become successful intentionally,
Yes.
right?
That's right. And it's kind of like how you need to, there's a requirement to teach children how to share. And so there's that means then we can teach, if you do uncommon things, you'll get uncommon results. If you do the common things, you get the common results. And so this pattern of success of being able, first of all, I guess we can never give someone we don't something we don't possess. We're sitting across the interwebs, but if we were sitting across the table and you were saying, Michael, could you pass me an apple? Well, I don't have an apple. And you might say, oh man, come on. You never give me anything I asked for. And it's like, well, I have an aversion to apples and I never have one with me. But that whole idea of never be upset if you ask someone for something that they don't possess. And so we want to be able to have those success principles and those other things to be able to teach that next generation of what's actually possible.
That's pretty cool. I like that. So the premise of your show, I want to
Hmm.
switch over to that.
Yeah.
Is you named it 5 a.m. podcast, and I
Yes.
listened to a couple of your shows, and I'm actually a huge proponent of early to bed, early to rise makes
Yes.
you wealthy and wise, and I live that in my life. I usually get up before 5 a.m. 7 days a week, and the rest of my family doesn't. It doesn't mean that they're not good, hardworking people or anything.
Hmm.
It's just that
Yeah.
they've not taken the time to make that intentionally part of their life yet.
Hmm.
But my son, who, like I said, he's 18, he's going to be leaving on his 2-year service
Ah,
mission in,
yes.
he's going to Germany, in fact, in October, so next month. But he's working full time right now, and his body's starting to acclimate to getting up earlier and earlier.
Hmm.
Because when you go on the 2-year mission, you have a pretty regimented schedule. I don't know if you know much about those.
A little bit, not too much.
Well, for anybody else who's listening and for your benefit, it's
Yes.
you've got a very strict schedule you keep. You have to be up at a certain time every day. You do not get to come home a full 2 years. You stay out there
Hmm.
and you get one partial day off a week. They call it a preparation day. You get to do laundry and go shopping or do errands or
Hmm.
whatever, and then the whole rest of the time you are studying the gospel or proselyting about Jesus Christ. One of
Hmm.
those two things. So it's incredibly difficult work, especially for 18, 19-year-old boys. And
Yeah.
so they have to have these regimented schedules. They have a rule book that they carry around with them in their pocket that says you cannot do certain things. You cannot go into certain areas. You got to, it's just highly regulated, which leaves them room to just focus on what they're there to do, really.
Hmm.
They've got these boundaries, these guardrails set up, but the more meticulously they follow them and build that into just knowing that that's what they're going to do, those are the young men
Yes.
who are successful in that mission. And then when they come off, when they come home and integrate back into society, they have those habits built in,
Mm.
allow them to be successful in whatever else they want to go do. So
Yeah.
tell me your thoughts about that as a scientific principle or truth.
Yes. Well, I do have friends that either have been on their 2-year mission or their children are on 2-year missions, and that ebbs and flows, and you see the value of that. But certainly the 5 a.m. podcast name came because I enjoy mornings. I like the solitude and the sunrise. I like the birds are up, and boy, oh boy, as a child growing up on a farm, man, you have to look after those animals. You have a responsibility not only to your fellow human, but to the animals that are on the farm. And Solomon, here again comes up Proverbs, talks about how we need to know the condition of our flocks. And that is everything that we're responsible for in life. Could be employees, could be coworkers, could be family members, could be our community, and absolutely the animals on our farm. And so when we're up early, we have already set the foundation of that by going to bed at the right time. Well, growing up, we didn't. Our parents saw the wisdom in not giving us a curfew, but giving us responsibility. And we would have the option. You can stay up as late as you want, but just remember, you're getting up at X o'clock, and it's either going to be unpleasant or pleasant for you, and the choice is yours. So it doesn't take too many ruined mornings because of a late night before you learn this is something that I have to take on myself and be responsible for. So the 5 a.m. name really comes from that delight of the morning hours and the value that it brings to the day of knowing that you get one day every year through the years, and we want to make it count. And if you don't want to make it count, if you're going to have a lazy day, how many lazy days do you want to have in a row? And how many days where you're not, and it's not about being a human doing as opposed to a human being, as Andrew Womack likes to say. It's actually about understanding the value that's been placed within us to help ourselves, to help others, to bring light into dark places, and to be a benefit and a blessing to people. And so then we understand why we want to have good early mornings, because those lead to great days. And those late, lazy mornings, well, how long can you have great days if you're trying to precede those great days by lazy days? And I often think of there'd be a time, you'd be visiting Chicago or something, and back in the day, you'd have a really thick Chicago Sun Times or the Tribune, you'd be it'd be a weekend morning, and it'd still be early, maybe 7 o'clock or something like that, and you'd be having a morning beverage, tea or coffee or something, and you're relaxing, and you realize the only reason I can relax and be on this little getaway is because all my other days were intentional. And once this is over, my other days are going to be intentional, leading towards something.
I see. I yeah, that's a lot
Sorry,
to,
yes.
to unpack, and it leads me to think that I I could be a lot more intentional with my mornings.
Hmm.
Given what you've just said,
Yeah.
but I've had the same routine for 10 plus years, and it you've given me an opportunity to think about how I could do things a little bit differently. So one of the questions I like to ask people
Hmm.
is, number one, what is your vision for 2025? And then adding to that, how have you been or how will you execute that into a reality?
Yes. Well, at the start of the year, my friend Ray and I were talking about alive and thrive in 25, or alive to thrive in 25. And, it's funny where we put the beginning of the year because we put it after the birth of the Savior of the world. And maybe a long time ago it was in springtime. Doesn't really matter, but it certainly marks the calendar with the beginning of where we maybe start anew for some people or continue on. So we had the Alive to Thrive in 25, and January 1, 2025 is when my wife Susan and I started 5 a.m. podcast as what it is today. We had the web address has been, and the articles online have been there since 2019. And so we, my wife and I, by saying we had to be determined and diligent that this is something that we were going to see through to the end, not just the end of the year, not just 100 episodes. Um, this is something that we were doing that was going to be we're alive to thrive, and we want to bring our listeners along for 25. And so for 26, I don't have a theme for it yet, but that's certainly something that I like to work through December on, of what is that theme going to be for 26 or the next year. And so that it comes back to that statement of when you do uncommon things, you get uncommon results. And then yeah, so it's just kind of that mindset of wanting to um, make sure that we're not leaving anything on the table at the
And
end of the day.
doing that with your wife comes with
Yeah.
its particular set of challenges. I know I've been married
Mhm.
20 years. My wife and I do also run a business together, and I've got a head for money, and she's got a head for being nice to people, basically.
Gotcha.
So we make a good team, but it doesn't always work for most couples. So I'm curious how you and your wife decided to do this podcast together.
Yes. Well, Susan and I had worked in media together after we were married. We met in college, so we went through the degree program together, and we liked each other's company. But we also had the mindset that if you want to get along, you will. If you don't want to get along, you will. And so when we're in relationship, whether it's business relationship, marriage and family relationship, we make that choice, just like getting out of the bed in the morning, because we can hit that snooze button and we get another 9 minutes. And I know when I was in college, I did the math. 9 times 3 is 27, huh? So that means I've already burned 18 minutes of my day by hitting the snooze button. And so the reason that I bring that up is the intentional choice of 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 we made vows. We love each other, whether we feel like it or not, because we know love is not a feeling, and so we keep moving forward together. But it really is that determination of we've chosen to be together in relationship, and so that means we're stronger together. And so we of course, every once in a while, we have to die to the flesh, so to speak, of that human fleshly wants and desires. But it really is an intentional decision that if we want to get along and have a peaceful home, man, I am the total cause of my dis-ease. So that's just that common denominator.
Well, that's a bit about how you can do it together, and I appreciate
Yes.
that.
Oh, okay.
And why did you guys decide to do it together?
Why? The why is because you could say we're all we've got, but the why was that we wanted to bring some sunshine and some positivity into people's lives. Napoleon Bonaparte said that leaders are dealers in hope. Leaders are dealers in hope. And so we wanted 5 a.m. podcast to impart hope to people who would come to the website. And I know we started 5 a.m. podcast when we needed a little bit of hope ourselves. And the book of Proverbs, I talk about it a lot. There's a chapter for every day of the month in the book of Proverbs. And it says, the one who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. And as we were putting this together, we kind of thought, well, if we need to be refreshed, and if we could refresh 5 people or 25 people, then we're going to get some refreshment back. And that's kind of what we needed. So we thought best way to do this is to start blessing other people with some positivity and some hope.
Awesome. I like that answer. That's
Yeah.
Now we just have 1 or 2 minutes left. So before we close, what is something that you'd like to give advice on or leave as a call to
Mm.
action? Or, it could be anything. It could be, hey, come visit my website, listen to our
Yeah.
podcast, to go do something, this or that. Like, what is your call to action?
Yeah. Well, I would say two things. Because we live in a physical realm, but we're spiritual beings. We have a creator that wanted a creation to connect with. And so, of course, absolutely head over to 5ampodcast.com, and we know that you'll find some great conversations in our podcast and some great articles on there. But the biggest thing is that connection to our creator. And Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." And so as we go through life, we always have choices of relationship. And we always want to pick good friends. And so even those spiritual connections that we have, they play such a pivotal role in the direction that we head. And we always go in the same direction as our friends. So hopefully people can be a friend of your podcast and our podcast. And together we can walk in that same direction towards a positive and success mindset, helping and loving people and bringing light to dark places.
Uh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I also believe each of us were intentionally put on this earth to fulfill
Mhm.
divine purpose.
Yes.
And we have God-given abilities and talents with which to do that.
Yes.
And this is one of the ways in which I felt like God was telling me to share some of my talents.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I can tell you're of the same mindset as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, here's if time permits, there's one more thing, and this might sound a little off in left field, but I was on my way to work one day, and I was thinking about that Buddhist philosophy of reincarnation. And I was listening to a podcast. Somebody might have been talking about that, and I thought, wow, like Jesus Christ, he's actually, for people that think of the whole goal of reincarnation is to be that perfect sinless life, to get off the wheel of reincarnation. I thought, wait a second, Jesus Christ was that one perfect God man who lived and died as a sinless person, and uh, we get to appropriate through Jesus Christ, if you will, the way off the reincarnation cycle. Anyway, I don't know if there's anybody listening that's been having questions about their future or their, let's say, next or previous lives, but there's one sure ticket off of that hamster wheel. There you
Well, that's definitely a train of thought I've never had before, but
go. Yeah.
I can see your thought process from point
Yes.
A to point B. So I appreciate that. And
Oh, my pleasure.
we do have to wrap up now, and it's been awesome being able to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for being on the Vision with Execution show. And everyone, I do really hope you go listen to Michael's podcast and 5 a.m. podcasts. It's always good to get
Thank you.
positivity and a little bit of inspiration each day from whatever the source may be. And scriptures are a great source,
Mhm.
and good, decent podcasts are another. It's just the light that you bring into your life is what you're going to shine out into the world around you. So bring in as much light as you can.
Mhm.
So with that, thank you so much, Michael. This has been an episode of the Vision with Execution show.